Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. The story begins as the Demon Lord summons his glorious 4 elite generals of his army. The first to be summoned is Old Mandra, the Inferno Assailant. The second is Gnome the Bastion. The third is Sylphid, the Archmage of Storms. And the fourth is someone that the Demon Lord declares will become part of his army's strength and conviction. It is his newly chosen elite general that will help him conquer the world. He is a soul summoned from another world that will have powerful control overseas. The Demon Lord finishes summoning his elite general and announces the arrival of Donosuke, the overseas manager. A quick flashback shows that Donosuke considered himself to just be an insignificant salaryman. He was filled with hope when he began his first job, but all that quickly went into the dumpster. Donosuke started seeing that his colleagues were all getting promoted, while all his work went unacknowledged. One day, this got even worse when he was given orders to transfer overseas. All his coworkers pitied him because he was sent to what is considered a graveyard for losers. Donosuke tried to remain positive, but he quickly found that the power plant he was sent to was a mess, and the higher-ups didn't care. There was a shortage of equipment and manpower, but his boss told him that they couldn't waste more money. Donosuke lost several of his workers, but he always believed that he could make things work, so he continued to work hard. The challenges were chipping away at his life, but eventually things improved, and the workers came back. All his hard work was finally paying off as the power plant success was beginning to skyrocket, but Donosuke was horrified to hear that he was being transferred to another country again. He questioned what he was doing all this for, but this was when his life was ended by Scooter-kun. Back to the present, Donosuke freaks out after realizing that he's now in another world. He's shocked to learn that someone knows his name, and the Demon Lord reveals that Donosuke is one of the elite generals of his army now. He is the great overseas manager. The Demon Lord has Donosuke's entire work history, and he was very impressed by it. He saw how Donosuke managed to rebuild the failing power plant, and decided that he would be worthy of the Demon Lord's army. Of course, Donosuke is confused and terrified because joining the Demon Lord's army is not a career path he ever considered. Instead of climbing the corporate ladder, this is more like falling off of it completely. The Demon Lord senses his hesitance, so he reveals all the great benefits that come with being one of his elite 4 generals. Donosuke will receive the compensation and authority equivalent to the department managers of his old world. He will get to choose his subordinates, and he will even get his own office. The benefits are of course amazing, and Donosuke really has no reason to complain. The Demon Lord even offers to send him back to his old world if he declines. Donosuke is in awe of the Demon Lord now because he even respects worker rights. Donosuke becomes depressed when he thinks about how poorly he was treated at his old job and says that he wasn't valued by his boss at all. He could never meet their expectations, and those who couldn't contribute to the organization were considered trash. Because of this, Donosuke has come to think of himself as trash, so he tells the Demon Lord that he's not worthy of the Demon Lord's army. Donosuke continues to put himself down, but the Demon Lord won't have any of it. He calls Donosuke's old bosses fools, and says that fools only value what they see. They pay no attention to the work done behind the scenes. The Demon Lord, on the other hand, has seen Donosuke's work, and he thinks that he can bring out the salaryman's full potential. He says it's not up to Donosuke to determine whether or not he is worthless, nor is it up to his old bosses. The Demon Lord says that it is he who will make that decision because he's the one that needs Donosuke. He then explains that the salaryman has 2 options: have his life ruined by working for fools, or serve the Demon Lord and aim for the sky. Donosuke isn't sure about what to say, but he's interrupted by Elmandra. She has an objection, as she can't see how a weak human will be able to serve as one of the 4 elite generals. The others object as well, and Donosuke agrees with them. The Demon Lord shows his great leadership as he takes their options into consideration, and Donosuke is shocked when the Demon Lord decides to test him. Donosuke desperately tries to explain that he has no powers, but the others are fired up by the idea. Elmandra has heard that humans from other worlds have special powers, and she wants to see it. She tests Donosuke with her most deadly blow, and he realizes that his death is inevitable. Luckily for him, the Demon Lord stops the crazy fire girl. She angrily wants to know why she was stopped, so the Demon Lord reveals that Donosuke just fainted from shock. It's pretty clear that he's just an ordinary human, and the Demon Lord explains that Donosuke doesn't have any powers. Of course, this makes the others object even more, since an incompetent human will never be accepted by an army full of powerful monsters. There is a power struggle between demons and demi-humans of the army, and Donosuke would get eaten alive. Gnome blames the demons for the power struggle, but Omandra blames the demi-humans. There is a clear struggle among the ranks, but that is exactly why the Demon Lord wants Donosuke to join them. He doesn't want Donosuke for his power, he wants him for his resourcefulness. Just then, Donosuke regains consciousness while still thinking about how Omandra's kick will destroy him into smithereens. The Demon Lord says that Donosuke doesn't have to worry. He doesn't want Donosuke for any physical abilities, and he will give the salaryman a fitting exam. This is still pretty terrifying as Donosuke realizes that this is an otherworldly entrance exam. The Demon Lord goes into details and explains that his army is trying to make pacts with several tribes surrounding their land. Unfortunately, negotiations with one tribe in particular isn't going so well. That is why Donosuke's exam will be to successfully make a pact with the Minotaur tribe. With Donosuke's great negotiation skills, he must gain the Minotaur's trust and welcome them into the demon army. Donosuke is shocked by this sudden change in his life, and the Demon Lord tells him to ask Omandra if he has any questions. Unfortunately, Omandra doesn't like him very much, and she is sure that Donosuke won't pass the exam. Of course, our boy is lacking in the confidence department and simply considers himself to be a useless salaryman who can't use magic and has no special abilities. However, he has never worked for someone that actually needed him, so Donosuke really wants to live up to the Demon Lord's expectations. Just then, they arrive at the room where the Minotaur chief is staying. Donosuke is terrified by what the huge door means, and Omandra warns that Minotaurs are ferocious. She tells our boy that he needs to be cautious or he will be trampled to death and turned into a human carpet. Donosuke tells himself to do his best, but that all falls apart when he sees how terrifying the Minotaur is. It truly is the embodiment of violence, and Donosuke imagines himself getting crushed. Omandra decides to help out the poor salaryman and shows him how negotiations are done. She asks for the great and powerful Sir Terius to hear what she has to say, and Donosuke's relieved that she can act as a mediator. However, his hopeful optimism goes straight out the window when Omandra just starts screaming at Terius. It's pretty clear that she's a terrible negotiator, and Terius just goes back in his room. Omandra reveals that negotiations with the Minotaurs were going well at first, but for some reason Terius started refusing everything. Omandra kept trying to complete negotiations day after day, but Terius just kept saying nay over and over again. On top of that, he tried bringing in a bunch of trash to throw around his room. Terius makes a bunch of noise as he thrashes about in his room, and Omandra simply leaves the rest to Donosuke. Our boy is terrified as the giant beast continues to thrash about, and he decides to go for a walk. He seriously doubts that he will even be able to talk to Darius, and he can even hear Omandra putting him down after failing. Just then, Donosuke strangely finds himself in a bar. He asks for the usual, and thinks about how it's impossible to negotiate with someone who doesn't want to. At that moment, Donosuke realizes that he encountered a similar situation before. A client kept telling him no, and Donosuke was ready to give up on the negotiation. However, once they looked eye to eye, they finally understood each other. Donosuke now has a newfound confidence and is sure that he can settle things. We then see that Omandra is reporting back to the Demon Lord. She doubts that an Otherworlder will be able to complete negotiations, but the Demon Lord gives Donosuke some more time. Omandra goes to check on him, but she is shocked to find Donosuke digging through the trash. Donosuke explains that he wants to have a proper conversation with the Minotaur, but Omandra thinks it's impossible. The beast has a major attitude, and he has no interest in making a deal. She is shocked, however, when Donosuke says that she's just giving up too early, and negotiations aren't going well because there must be a misunderstanding somewhere. The only way to reconcile things is to make eye contact with the other person while building a relationship of trust. Our boy confidently tells Omandra to watch him as he completes the negotiation, and she is stunned to see his transformation. The next day, Omandra barges into the room and is shocked to see that it's a complete mess. She fears that they had a battle, but Donosuke appears and she blames him for making a mess. She wonders where Terius is, and Donosuke reveals that he's currently making the pact with the Demon Lord. Omandra's completely confused, so Donosuke clarifies that the Minotaurs and the Demon Army will finally be allies. Omandra refuses to believe that Danosuke was able to complete the negotiations in just one night, especially because Terius has been so difficult this entire time. Danosuke explains that you must know yourself so you can know your enemy, but she has no clue what he's talking about. He clarifies even further by pointing out how Omandra thought that Terius was refusing negotiations. She thought he was because he just kept saying nay to everything. Danosuke explains that the Minotaur actually thought the talks were going well. What helped Danosuke figure out the problem was his experience from someone telling him no over and over again. No matter what Danosuke tried, he couldn't convince this corporate boss to agree to the negotiations. The more he discussed details, the more emotional the guy became. It wasn't until Danosuke was ready to give up that the guy decided to shake his hand. It turns out that the guy just liked to have lively conversations and wanted to hear as much detail as he could. In some countries and cultures, being emotional and passionate is good. That is where the misunderstanding came from. When Danosuke looked Terius in the eyes and really talked it out, he found out everything. Terius was just being passionate, but Omandra took it as him wanting to fight. That is why he got even more upset when she threatened to end the negotiations because of his behavior. Also, it's common courtesy in the Minotaur tribe to bring hay into the room when staying over. The kind Minotaurs do this to make sure they don't break the house's bed since they have such big bodies. His hay was mistaken for garbage, so Terius had to sleep on the floor and he was sleep deprived. He was really frustrated, so he couldn't convey his feelings in a way that Omandra understands. Omandra realizes that she failed to make an effort to understand Terius, but Terius takes part of the blame as well. The two apologize to each other, and Terius thanks Danosuke for everything. As they say goodbye, the Demon Lord explains that the successful negotiation was thanks to Danosuke's talent, his ability to pick up on things that people normally wouldn't. The Demon Lord says that Danosuke passed the test and welcomes him as a new member of the 4 elite generals. Omandra no longer doubts the salaryman, and the Demon Lord tells him to hold out his arm. The Demon Lord gives him a bracelet and says that it will serve as proof that he is one of the great generals. The Demon Lord has full trust in him and tells Danosuke to do what he thinks is best and to do what he believes is right. After Danosuke thanks the Demon Lord, Omandra raises her arm to him. She's furious when he doesn't know what she's doing, so she tells him to raise his arm back. Danosuke does, and the two formally say their titles to each other. Omandra explains that this is how her clan welcomes new friends, but she goes back to her old self as she tells him that she hasn't fully acknowledged him yet. The two run off together, and the Demon Lord thinks about how a group that complements each other will also grow stronger together. Unfortunately, his army is still immature and incomplete. However, Danosuke will be their light, and his brightness will lead the army so they can truly shine. Thanks for watching my recap. Subscribe to the channel for more videos.